This podcast is brought to you by Civic Plus. For all of our park and recreation pros, do you feel like you're constantly putting out fires? Registrations, facility bookings, team calendars, it's a nonstop juggling act serving your community. That is where Civic Plus comes in. Their comprehensive parks and recreation management solution streamlines everything, from online registration to facility scheduling and payments, all in one place. Parks and Recreation Management by Civic Plus automates the busy work that bogs you down, so you can spend less time on paperwork and more time creating unforgettable programs for your residents. Civic Plus is the trusted partner for thousands of high-performing civic leaders, helping them balance better services with limited resources. With over 25 years of experience and a team of 900 experts, Civic Plus powers over 10,000 organizations and touches 350 million lives every day. So if you're ready to train that bird out for impact, visit civicplus.com. The best run local governments run on Civic Plus technology.
Welcome to Season 5 of RecLess, the podcast making you smarter and more knowledgeable about the field of parks and recreation. Your hosts are Shane Mize, Jay Tryon, and Tom Venniro, three career-long friends from across the country bringing you a surprise guest each episode. Listen in on a great conversation, maybe take some notes, and definitely enjoy a couple of laughs. This is RecLess.
Shane, you're going to like this.
Oh, look at that. There, Ohio. OH. Oh, they didn't say it. I was trying to bait them.
Yeah, we're well trained around here.
Just trying to bait them.
Okay, you guys hear me?
How's it going? How was the holiday lunch?
It was good.
'Tis the season.
It is.
All ready to get started? Got a mystery guest with a little college football image today.
Yeah, they're happy the way that game went.
Mm-hmm. All right, Here we go. Welcome to RecLess, everyone. We are here in the middle of Season 5, or closer to the end anyway, I guess. Yeah. Episode 16 and 94 overall. The countdown to 100 is officially on, or was on as of last episode. We were 7 away. We are now 6 away from 100, which is exciting. I am your host today, Tom Venniro, and I am here with my good buddies in the field, Jay Tryon and Shane Mize.
You had to put that disclaimer on. Just we're field friends, Jay.
Just in the field.
We're not friends.
Not in life.
When it
not
comes
in
to
life.
field.
Yes, this is.
That's new. We used to be friends outside of the field.
Something happened.
Something has changed.
Something happened.
You can't blur those lines too much, guys. All right. Ever since you sent a full box of ring pops to my kids, which, by the way, thank you both, and Hannah. The RecLess team sent us a nice little welcome to the world basket for Mize, which had a beautiful sweater that pretty much brought my wife to tears. She thought it was the most adorable sweater with her name on it. There was maybe something else baby related that I'm forgetting, but there was also a couple goodies for the older kids. There was some Army men for Jack, a little princess dress up sticky pad for Amelia, which she loved and played with for a lot of time that evening.
Love it.
And then a box, a full, the ones you find in Sam's Club, or if you have a Sam's Club or Costco or whatever you have, the warehouse type big box stores, a full box of ring pops.
An industrial size serving of ring pops.
Yes, you might also go to a convenience store, and that's what they have on the shelves, so that you can pick just one out and buy it for $0.25. But this is the full box we have. So, the kids have had one once a day for the last 4 days or so. Amelia had a blue mouth for 2 days after having a blue raspberry. So I appreciate that, guys.
You do have to bathe her and brush her teeth every now and again. That part's not on Jay and I.
Oh, in this household, they're supposed to learn fast. So, well, all right. So I do appreciate it, though. That was a really, really wonderful gesture. Made a lot of people happy. And so thank you, guys.
Still only got us industry friends. Just
it didn't change.
These are we're his best friends that he podcasts with. That's what he's one episode away from Of all the podcasters I podcast with, these two guys.
But he's not a podcaster. He's a park and rec professional.
No, you're right. I just podcast with you guys.
Yeah, we're the podcasters.
Wow, this has been a fun opening. Could always leave it to you guys. So, welcome again, everyone, as we bring you into the world of parks and recreation from our lens, and then also a guest or guests each week. Today, we have a nice, exciting episode for you. Our guest's name is Mystery Guest, but also has a really fun image of the Buckeye Man. Please tell me, what's the name? Is it just the Buckeye?
No, he has a name.
Sam? Is it? No.
Nope.
All right, I'm gonna stop guessing.
I think it's Brutus, right?
It is. It's Brutus.
Brutus. All right, Brutus, and they've got the Michigan M in the field. It is crossed out, and Ohio State just easily took care of Michigan this past weekend. So it appears we have an Ohio State Buckeye fan with us today. But first, I want to talk a little bit about finance and strategy with the both of you. It's a topic that maybe we don't go into too often, but we wear a lot of hats. Are you struggling
financially? Is that what's happening? You need to pass the hat, a GoFundMe?
Well, I'm going to be selling ring pops now.
This baby
outside of the house.
Broke you. Yeah.
Specifically, I'm talking financially in our field.
Oh,
wise guy. So we wear a lot of hats. Depending on the position you're in, you might be doing some marketing, you might be doing your programming or running events, whatever it is. And then maybe one of those other hats on the back end that probably everybody in the field does is some kind of financial management. Even if you're running a basic program, there are some financial pieces that go along with that, whether it's revenue, expenses, indirect expenses, all of it, right? Staffing. So I think at times this flies under the radar when we are looking to hire or bring people into the field. A lot of organizations, and again, I don't want to give an example, but a big organization might have your job and you're in a silo, and then you have the finance department. Now, we have finance departments, I get that, but I don't know that in a municipal setting, at least in my experience, the finance departments don't get too deep into the weeds, especially when you're looking at, again, those basic programs. That's really on those individuals in our department. You might get a question here or there on an interview about how would you run this program, and it might be one and done and you move on. But I don't know in my experience that it's been stressed enough, and it's a lot of the time learning by doing. You're learning the finance. So I just want to know from you guys in your financial management within your agencies that you've served throughout your careers, what is something that you wish you learned a little earlier in your career when it comes to that piece of the job that might have helped you? Because again, like I said, I feel like sometimes you're learning as you're going when it comes to the finance piece. I don't know that we have a very robust training. Now, of course, NRPA has Revenue Management School. Mm-hmm. But that's not something that's always accessible to every agency, and not every agency has a program like that. I can go first if you'd like, or if someone is ready.
Oh, I'll go. I like this topic. We actually just had a meeting earlier today and talking about some program strategies that we're looking at. And for me, if I'm going to look at this in the context of like what I wish I knew earlier in the career path versus now, I have a very robust program planning form that I use with our agency here and what I've used in the last probably 10 years with Mecklenburg County as well. We call it the PPF, Program Proposal Form. And there's, very standard things in there, description, dates, times, all that. But then there's it's an Excel document, and there's several tabs that are all tied to finances. And I have it broken down into literally like every expense possible, plus additional expenses that you don't think about, some overhead fees that you're not thinking about, whether it's from your fees that you have to pay with credit cards or your fees that you're paying with your Civic software, utilities, little things here and there that not everyone's going to think about other than like your true expenses when you're buying program supplies and you're paying staff wages, all those things. And, you plug all the information into this document and it kind of spits out a variety of different fees that you would charge based on cost recovery goals. Growing up in the field 20 years ago when I would do program planning, like I didn't think about any of that. I was not thinking about cost recovery goals.
Yeah.
I wasn't really thinking about, what the revenue would look like, other than the fact that, I might have been told, hey, make sure that you're bringing in the revenue that you're spending, stuff like that, but not necessarily as detailed as I'm looking at it now. And it's really helped our staff with planning too, because then, we might be looking at supplies that we're purchasing that can be used for different programs so that it helps like carry things over with our program budget. This is significantly impactful when it comes to summer camp, because you're looking at things like from the bigger picture of what we have to do with all of our trips, and we're throwing in all the different expenses with our trips, and we're using contracts for vehicles or third party companies to do different trips and doing special events that we're bringing in. So I just think like the planning documents that I have now are things that I never had anything like that when I was, a rec specialist or a programmer.
Yeah.
And I think about it now because the programmers that I had with Mecklenburg County now, they have it at their disposal, but we didn't have that 20 years ago. So it's definitely changed. I think there's a lot more emphasis on what you're spending and revenue now than there was before. And maybe not every agency. Some agencies don't necessarily focus on that at all. Some have different goals. And, we talk with Michael Klitzing with Carmel Clay, and they are 100% cost recovery.
Yeah.
So obviously a department like that has to plan very different than a department that might have a 30% cost recovery goal with all their programs. So I think it's really strategically knowing what your cost recovery goals are is really important when it comes to planning fiscally with programs.
Yeah, Jay, I really appreciate you diving into it from that perspective. So Shane, I'll just piggyback off of Jay because I was going in a little bit of similar direction, so it makes sense, and we'll let you wrap it up. First,
And I'll be the opposite, so that'll be
probably.
Good. Yeah.
First thing I want to say to go off of that is when Jay responded, he had some real excitement. He goes, "I like this topic," which tells me that he doesn't like most of the topics that we bring up. So
there are some things that like I'm very passionate about in program planning and the financial piece of it, marketing, strategic planning, all those things. Yes, I can talk about that all day. Oh. When Shane talks about like, oh, what's your
don't start with the voice. You could have done it with that. He said when Shane, and then he dumbed down his voice. Did you hear that? He said,
yes. I love it.
You don't have to assault my senses. You could have just said it. Oh, that was funny.
Okay, go ahead, Tom.
But I would say both y'all have higher executive function than me. But Jay, I think, lives very high in his executive function. Like these are things that you enjoy, appreciate, I think come pretty naturally to you too.
Yeah, a lot of it,
Or should I say, oh, look at Jay and his little calculator.
Man. This has gone off the rails a little bit. Well, yeah, I was going to ask if Jay does the voices of his team members when he talks to them too.
Or just us when he's off the thing.
Probably.
It's really just Shane. It's not Tom.
Okay. All right, perfect. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed that you changed your pitch and tried to go a different octave to imitate Shane. All right, so I was going to go in a little bit of the direction of cost recovery, and yes, I love the idea of having the planning forms because having that in front of an individual who's new into the field, who's running a program or programs for the first time, there's a lot of questions. And that would eliminate some of those questions going up the ladder, right? So that obviously makes a whole lot of sense. One piece of that to go a step backward in the process, regardless of the job, whether it was as a rec assistant, leader, supervisor, director, assistant director, I would have loved to, maybe this is on me to ask that question or to have been taught the cost recovery goals of the agency from the beginning. A lot of the times I had to figure that out and fly by. So to your point, Jay, those cost recovery goals are going to be different depending on where you are. So I understand that. And if you are fully taxable services, which I can't speak to, I could speak closer to the middle where you said that Michael Klitzing over in Carmel Clay they're looking at a full cost recovery. I've always been in a range where we're looking at a 20 to 60% cost recovery. It's changed by agency, but I didn't really understand that. And I believe that's I think that's the case with, and it's a job of us to let our team members know now that we're in these positions. But understanding that would have given me a much bigger advantage to obviously, figured it out now and we know how to use and maximize those goals. And that's what you want to do ultimately is how do you maximize your cost recovery goals to help offset or make the other services that you have more effective. And that's ultimately what I wish I would have learned or asked those questions or been taught going into it, because it would have saved me a lot of time on the front end that, again, taking out the legwork of figuring it all out. For example, if you're hitting these marks on the cost recovery goals and you are trying to recover some of that revenue, how can that help you in your budgeting going forward so that you could look at maybe other programs or other services or maybe some equipment that you don't have necessarily the funds for, but you have these programming goals that you could make, this cost recovery goal that can help offset that. A lot of times we get in there and we see a budget and we see a balanced budget and it's revenue and expense, and it seems very cut and dry. What I also wish that I knew going back and forth is it's not always that cut and dry. There is wiggle room in the financial piece there too. And you can definitely use and play off of your knowledge and your effectiveness with the budget to help, again, maybe offset somewhere where you're lacking. If that makes any sense to you guys, is using the strengths that you have from a financial machine to offset some of the weaknesses or the deficiencies or maybe lack of resources that you have.
Yeah, I think I probably am on the other side of y'all on a lot of things with this, but I think I wish earlier in my career that the cost recovery number, the financial number, is a story as well. It's telling a story.
It is.
I'm not in Carmel Clay, and I don't think when Michael Klitzking leaves, hopefully he never leaves, but when he does, I don't think Carmel Clay will identify me as his replacement. So I'm not, or neither will Nunes. I'm not a 100% cost recovery guy, and I've never had to be, and so I definitely have the benefit of that. But I am running a rec center, or will be running a rec center, that is required to be 100% cost recovery. Or, as I tell the story differently, it's required not to have an impact on the bottom line of the tax base, right? I need to run this facility without raising the tax rate. Everyone says that's cost recovery, but can I use 4B sales tax funds? Can I use hot tax funds to offset? Can I run it at 75% cost recovery and have 30% cost recovery through an alternative fund? So for me, it's telling the story. And I think we've heard a lot that what gets measured gets managed. And I think the story we tell sometimes to show the worth or to show the value is this isn't going to impact the tax base. This is 100% cost recovery. This thing pays for this thing. This can't pay for this. It pays for itself. But what if it didn't? Is there value there, even if it didn't? And that's the story I try to tell with my counsel a lot, which is these events aren't cost recovery. Sometimes camp's not 100% cost recovery. Maybe it's 95%, but it's not 100%. But we're going to keep the barrier to entry low because there's still things about investing in quality of life that aren't measurable, but they're so impactful that they're almost immeasurable in some ways, right? And I think we know it as people in this industry, and it's our job to tell that story. And so I have gotten away from telling our cost recovery numbers in a lot of my presentations and where we're at on cost recovery and where we are in M&O. And I try to do a better job of showing the impact of these programs and events. And then in the budgetary process, I say we're at 30% of our department. We're at 50% of our rec center right now. We're going to be at first year of this new rec center is going to be around 75, 80%. I'm going to need to find 15% of alternative funding if I run it my way. And I need to find that funding, but I need support from council. And it's so much easier for them to get behind programs that aren't 100% cost recovery if I can show why they're important. And so it's still telling a story. It's just not telling the story that this is equal to this, so you don't have to worry about it. This is so important that we're going to find a way to supplement it. And I wish I'd known that sooner, because in someone who is very low executive function, I worried about trying to the numbers earlier in my career way more than I do now. And now I've been able to get my counsel to back what we're doing because of the presentations, because of the impact, because of the follow-up that we hear from vendors, from participants, from program users. And because how we tell our story, I get a lot more support and I get a lot less questions about cost recovery than I used to. And I wish I'd learned to focus on what I think were the more important parts early on.
No, I agree with that, Shane. And I don't think we're too far off from what I was saying, from what you were saying. It was said much differently, and storytelling is a great way to put it. And how are you telling the story? I don't think we're out there thumping on the, hey, this is how much we recovered train, right? It's more or less, though, I know what our cost recovery goals are here and with this area so that I can try to go somewhere else where we don't have those resources for something that's very impactful, even though we know that that's not going to bring in. It's not going to bring in money. You know what I mean? That's and to your point, telling the story of the impact is definitely a great piece and way to frame this conversation. So I appreciate and respect both of your guys' perspectives there. But let's get to our guest. We talked about it before. We got the Buckeyes and the Wolverines, a couple mascots or team names. Shane, you're the guru, so we got some more of those for you coming up here.
Oh boy!
First one,
okay.
Our guest graduated from the same university as Terrell Owens, T.O. Anybody know that university first?
I do not.
I wouldn't call it a wide receiver like Ohio State. So
I could Google it, but I'm not going to go down that path.
We'll go. T.O. graduated as
Alabama.
Did our guest.
It was in Alabama, the state, I believe, but I don't know.
Tennessee at Chattanooga.
Oh, okay.
University of Tennessee at Chattanooga. Do you know that team name? That's a tough one. I think we might have stumped him.
He doesn't.
Our mystery guest. All right. It's the Mocs.
I was going to say Marauders, so I felt like it could have been close.
Now, yes, the Moccasins. Also holds a graduate degree from the University of Dayton. What team is
Flyers.
that? Nailed it. One of two today. All right. Our guest spends on average 45 nights a year camping in various state parks throughout the Midwest.
Okay.
They hold certifications as Certified Government Financial Manager and CPRP. Our guest presented at several conferences on the East Coast, recently including New Jersey, Maryland, and Connecticut. Our guest is a former regent of the Revenue Development Management School.
Hence the question.
Our guest also served on the Ohio Parks and Recreation Association Board of Directors. Our guest started their career with Kettering Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Arts. They are also the former chief of administration for Five Rivers Metro Parks. Anything?
I think I know who it is.
You know, okay.
Are they back at Kettering?
They are. Our guest is back at Kettering full circle, serving as the director of Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Arts. Our guest, please welcome Bill Tschirhart.
Bill Hardname is what we call him.
I told Tom, I said, look, whatever you do, do not look at how the name is spelled when you're going to pronounce it. You will absolutely mess it up. I'm just telling you now. Free tip, brother.
He could have just said Bill from Kettering. And he went for it.
Yeah, he did. It's risks were taken. Let's leave it at that.
Risks were taken.
It's great. You got 4 consonants before you hit a vowel. It's just brilliant, really, more than anything. My wife's a 4th grade teacher, and she would draw a picture of a cheerleader on the whiteboard and a heart. And that's how she taught kids to say the name. And you too now will always remember how to say my name.
For the record, I did not look when I said it. I just used my memory. I took Bill's advice, and it worked. It worked. Also, Bill taught me, just like his wife teaches the little kids how to say his name. He did the exact same thing when we were doing our prep call. So I was well ready to do this. I really wanted to put Bill's name on the screen and ask Shane to pronounce it, because I really enjoy watching Shane pronounce words. But
even with the prep, I get y'all's last names wrong, and we're podcast colleagues, friends sometimes.
Yeah, not like real. Is it a step above or below Facebook friends if you're podcast friends?
It's interpretive. It's interpretive, Bill.
I guess Tom would have to define that. He's been into defining stuff lately.
Is it? It's going to be it's complicated status.
It is complicated. You can't say anything around these guys.
It might be different next week. Who knows?
That's right.
Let's get into it. All right, Bill. So you've got a lot of great financial background, which I want to get into, but I want to start with the fact that you were with Kettering. That's where you started your career. You were with a pretty large organization just prior with Five Rivers, and now back to Kettering. And when you had come back to Kettering, come back home, I read a press release from Kettering, and it had basically you had described Kettering as your home, both personally and professionally, which is amazing and a great story. I know we had Hashim Taylor, who had a similar coming of home story, but that's different for everybody. And I want to talk a little bit about that with you being, returning there as a director after so many years in the field, but also stepping into a role that had a really, really large legacy following the previous director who was in the position for 23 years. How did you approach that? And I want to ask that in the terms of managing a team and managing community expectations. I came into a similar situation. 25 years the director was in my position. And I told you this, Bill, and I'm not going to bore anybody with my story, but I will say that one person about 2 or 3 years ago came up to me and said, yeah, gotta tell you, Tom, we didn't think you were going to make it. Because you take the seat of someone that's there for 25 years, it's a big deal. It's a lot you're taking over for, a lot of trust that they had built up in equity. So, what was your process there? How did you approach it and again, manage those team and community expectations?
Yeah, it's a great question. And fortunately for me, Tom, I'm only a year in. So nobody has asked me yet, like, we didn't think you were going to make it that long. So maybe after the 2-year mark is when I'll get that. Really, my family is embedded in this community. I grew up here. Before I worked full time for the city of Kettering, I was the part-time staff person working at the recreation complex, managing the building operations and that sort of thing. So, when I left Kettering to go to Five Rivers Metro Parks, I stayed in the Kettering community. My wife teaches 4th grade in our community. My kids have gone to school here in Kettering, so we are definitely part of the fabric. I was volunteering for boards and whatnot for the city, so still very connected as to what was going on and familiar with it. The previous director was here for decades, and I got to work with her on a lot of projects. We passed a major bond issue back in 2008 together to make improvements to all of our neighborhood parks and improvements to our recreation complex. So it's not lost on me the people that have come before me and their shoulders that I'm standing on, leading this organization. Coming back, one of the favorite things I like to tell people about the interview process is when I came into interview, I think I met with 25 people during the last round of the interview, and I knew all but one of them before I walked in the room. I mean, that's just how ingrained we are in the community and the connections to what's happening here. So, coming back, the big thing I wanted to focus on was the relationship side of things. I'm very much a servant leader, and I want to lead with my heart. And I want people to know that I care about them as people, as a whole person. And so I've really focused and leaned into that over the last 12 months. This is actually my anniversary. I mean, in the last couple of days is when I started exactly a year ago. So really trying to make sure that the team knew that I cared for them and wanted them to care for each other as well. And that there may be things that you don't get accomplished because you're helping someone else. And that's okay, right? Because it's moving the agency forward to a goal that we're trying to achieve. And that's really been the focus over the last 12 months is what do we need to do as a city to move forward and not just the rec division or the parks division or that sort of a thing. So it's been a great homecoming for me to work with a lot of these people, to work closely with the schools, a lot of folks that my wife knows and people that we run into the same circles a lot of times. So I have meetings with the superintendents of the school and other administrators, and they met with my wife earlier that day. So it's such a fun environment to be part of it in this community that has really done so many amazing things for so long.
It's just some quick commentary there. You just unloaded a lot of great lessons and takeaways for individuals. One that I just want to really hone in on there for our listeners is that this seemed very strategic to an extent. You obviously love the community. You had your roots in there. But what a great lesson for individuals out there that if they're living somewhere, wherever it may be, and they want to stay in the area and they're in a community, but they're working in a community that's a 20 to hour, whatever it is, commute, to ingrain yourself in that community and be involved and make those relationships in the one that you're there. that you're living in. You have a couple young individuals in your family, a couple sons that are graduating from college and high school, correct?
Right.
So over the last so many years, you had your hands full.
Right.
You didn't necessarily have all of the time to do all of that, but you made the time to do it. And I can't imagine that hurt, right? That had to be a real beneficial piece, an attractive piece for the individuals in Kettering to say, Bill's our guy, So great lesson there.
Yeah, it was definitely a known commodity, right? I mean, I worked here for 14 years before heading off to Metro Parks, and it's not like I dropped off the map, right? I would still see people at our state conferences. I was interacting with our elected officials through these various boards and committees, and so definitely was familiar to them. And I think, that's part of what the conversation was we've got this great candidate in our backyard. Why would we try to poach somebody from, states or something away?
I've probably told this story before. I'm going to tell a briefly section of it just to set the stage for it is, I know all of us probably follow a variety of different park and rec departments that we look up to, whether it's on social media, whether it's just from tracking what they've done. Kettering has been one of those for me for almost 20 years. And I say that because one of my former directors, Jim Garges, came from Kettering, and I had just always seen just quote unquote rock stars that were coming out of Kettering. And there's just a lot of just really strong professionals that I looked up to, that I respected, that were just doing amazing things. And I always wondered, what was it that made Kettering such a strong department? And obviously there's always strong leaders that are there. Mm-hmm. But, outside of the leadership that you've been under and the leadership that you're providing your agency, what are some other attributes, that continues to have Kettering at this top of this chain that I see with, constantly either going for or winning a gold medal, always having accreditation. There's all these standards that are set for Kettering that are just the top of the food chain that really just you guys thrive in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Jay, you're so right. That was one thing. We had a board meeting last night, and I love telling that story, right? When you think of the number of agencies that have been accredited since the mid-90s, or as my kids like to call it, the 1900s, right? And then, we've been accredited that long, and we've won 3 gold medals. You start looking at other agencies across the country, and there's probably 15 that can claim that. It's not a big number of agencies. And so, I don't mind bragging on that. We do really good stuff. And I tell you, we have so much support from our elected officials with the level of financial support, of resources that they provide. That's what has helped keep it at such a high level, right? We talked about finance earlier, and you all got into it about cost recovery and all that sort of thing. How many times do we hear from our colleagues that when push comes to shove, they might be implementing a 10% cut across the agency, across the city, but Parks and Rec, you got to cut a bigger percentage, right? That would never happen here in Kettering. We are so well supported, and we're what council talks about. I regularly attend our council meetings, and they talk about the amazing things going on in our community. Without fail, they're talking about Parks and Recreation. So it's a source of pride for our community, and we are just so well supported by our council, by our residents, and really by the whole city administration.
I think Kettering's got an incredible reputation, but I'm kind of interested more in just, talking to you, Bill Hardname, because I think we've talked about moving to a different department and how it challenges you, whether it's the same department or moving back to it. And you've done both, right? You moved away and then you've moved back. One of the things that I find invigorating about that process, and I'm starting to look for where my next steps are going to be, is that it is an incredible filter to figure out pretty quickly what you do well. Mm-hmm. I also think it's an incredible filter to figure out what you do best. And I'm not talking best as in you do this better than the person you replaced or better than someone in the industry, but what do you do best? In this process, what did you find out about you, and what would you say you are the best at? Not compared to other people, but what do you do the best as compared to all the strengths that you have? What's your best strength?
it's amazing how anxiety inducing it can be.
Yeah.
Leaving an organization that you've been with for 14 years, the only one you've ever known, to go to another organization where you literally didn't move houses, to then move back to the same organization, and what that churns up in you, right? But that wasn't the question that Shane Easy Name asked. I think the question really is like, what do I feel like I do the best? And man, if I had to plant my flag somewhere, it's relationships. I mean, I am such a people person. I am an extrovert by nature. I get energy from people, so I'm probably the person you see at a party and you try to avoid because I'm going to suck the energy out of you. I think it's something I just love communicating with folks. I love teaching. I love presenting. I don't know, maybe it's main character syndrome. Maybe that's another word for it. But I love that one-on-one interaction. I love making people feel special, that they see something in themselves that maybe they didn't see before. And to me, if I had to wrap that up in a big ball, I'd say that's relationships. And
I love that. As an introvert who's got some high levels of social anxiety, I got to hang out with you and interact with you a couple different times at NRPA, both at the externship social, and then at the thing with Ryan Hegerness, we got to hang out. And you have a balance there. Like, there are some extroverts, there are people that love people, that they love people hard. You know, like, you come away feeling that they had loved you, you know? And like, I wouldn't say that was the case. Like, you have a ability to have a conversation with people where the person that you're talking to feels like you're the only person that you're talking to without feeling like they carried the weight of anything when they leave that conversation. That's probably something that I would think is pretty rare, especially for someone that is an extrovert or wants to be interacting with a lot of people. To not leave a residue behind is, I think, pretty rare.
Yeah. It's a great way of putting it, that residue, right? Like, I think about my team, and, there was a very intentional interim period between when I left the organization when the previous director retired and when I joined the organization. And they got really close with one another during that time frame, and they really cared for each other well. And so they were ready for somebody to come in and point a direction and continue to care for them. And so, that was the easy part, right? I had to just make connections and relationships. And a lot of them, of course, I already knew ahead of time.
Following up on that before Tom hops on, we had J. Cole on a couple weeks ago, and we talk about the importance of getting that replacement hire right. Because I think, and I can think of agencies that I'm not going to put on blast out here, but I can think of people that saw a profile leave and thought, man, this department's really good. We just pulled a piece of a puzzle out. We have the rest of the puzzle in place. We just need to find this 4-armed piece of this puzzle and put it back in and just jam it in exactly, and we'll just continue to hum. When that's just never the case. Like, you can't take someone out, and you can't take Tom out and put Jay in. It's just, it's a new puzzle. You're starting over. And sure, some of the same puzzle pieces are there, but they have to form a different identity at times, and that's tough for them. And I think a people person probably makes that transition easier, and so that probably is like a super strength for you. But like, you can't take one person out of anything, a family, a culture, a department, a leadership profile, and just jam another person in and everything hums the way it does. You have to start a new fabric. It's a new swath of some sort of blanket that you're starting all over again. And that one got put to bed, and it was great. And it did whatever it did for a long time, and people got to appreciate it. But this is a new thing. This is a new canvas that you're working on. Even if a lot of the characters are the same, it still has to be different,
Mm-hmm. It was so interesting because, the way staff interacts, right? And, well, what does Bill want to know that maybe I didn't have to tell the last person? Or what did the last person want to know that Bill doesn't want to know about?
Sure.
Or that kind of a thing. And so, that dance and that nuance that happens anytime someone's new in an organization, right? How will meetings happen? What does the follow-up look like? All of those things, right? There's systems in place in every organization. And there's still a lot of autonomy that directors have to function in their department the way they see best fit. And so there have been changes that I've seen come through since I've been here in the short 12 months. And there's a lot of things that, like, yeah, it's working great for us. Let's keep moving in that direction.
Yeah, let's kind of go a little bit in a similar direction, but we're going to shift gears a little bit to the development piece there and how you're working with the individuals that you work with now in Kettering. You had mentioned before that you knew some of those individuals. You came from Five Rivers Metro Parks, which you had shared with me. It's and again doing some research. That is it spans over a much larger area, right? So you had told me that there was at least a park or parks that is larger than all of the parks that you now have in Kettering. And it had just a different feel, right? You're looking at more of a natural park feel. You had explained to me where you're now into this community where I think that's maybe what I'm used to is more of that community feel, and everything is here, and there's kind of that connection and almost that feel where everybody is working together for that community. Where over at Five Rivers, you had tourists, people coming from all over the state or even from out of the state to check out those spaces. I can imagine that returning or going from the scale that you were in with Five Rivers and managing the individuals that you were managing there is a lot different than the setting that you have to manage individuals here in Kettering. How did that scale transition work for you? And tell me, the differences, maybe a little bit about the pros and the cons of managing teams and managing individuals in the system that you had in Five Rivers versus a place like Kettering.
Yeah, so at Five Rivers Metro Parks, they're a countywide agency, right? Serving 500,000 people. I'm in a city now serving 55,000. So the scope is dramatically different. We manage about 380 acres. Metro Parks is 16,000. So it's just size and scope is just dramatically different. At Metro Parks, I was in charge of departments. I had finance and HR and IT and marketing and business operations. Here I'm in charge of the department of Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Arts. So, from my perspective, I have 7 direct reports, superintendent levels, and I work with them to carry out the missions in their individual areas to support the overall department itself. It's a lot of it's the same, right? Where, the human resources person at Metro Parks may have needed this type of encouragement or coaching, and, it's just different than the marketing person. It's the same thing here in Kettering. The park superintendent needs this type of coaching or communication compared with the cultural arts person, right? And so those things just vary from person to person. And so you tailor that based off of what fits for the moment and what fits for the person itself. It's been interesting because I don't have a horticultural background. I wouldn't know most flowers if they came up and bit me. That's just not my background, and I'm not necessarily proud of it, but I'm not afraid of it either, right? Like I don't need to know that. There are people that I work with who do, and I rely on them. And so a lot of what I do is I rely on my team who have that subject matter expertise to manage those functions. I came up through recreation managing facilities. And so programming, not Bill's strong suit. I'm a really good administrator. But if you're asking for somebody to come up with these really creative, crazy program ideas like they do in Pflugerville, I'm not your person. And I'll tell you that, right? I think when I was being interviewed, they talked about what I thought would be my greatest challenge coming to Kettering, and I pointed out some of my lack of experience, at least from the park side of things. And I said, so if that's your greatest need, you shouldn't hire me.
Right.
But I don't think that's your greatest need. I don't think that's where you guys need help. And so I tried to play to my strengths in that respect, to just say for my individual team members, look, what do you need from me? That was day one for them. How do you like to be communicated with? How do you like to be recognized? Because I don't want to overstep or put them in a position that they're not feeling like they can be their best version of themselves,
Yeah. Well, and I commend you for the honesty and authenticity of that, because obviously all of us have like our strengths where we would shine, whether it's programming, whether it's the finance side, the admin side, whatever it may be. And there's some people that would probably apply for a leadership role and try to fudge their way through it and say that they're strong in all those areas. And it would come out at some point, I'm sure, that they're not. And, having the honest conversation, knowing that like, okay, this is my strong point, this is where I can bring the most to the department, is what's really beneficial for both yourself and the organization to know that. And that's why you as a leader or any leader is going to hopefully lean on their staff that has the strong points in that other areas that you may not be as strong. And that's always been like the conversation we've had with others about, when you have a good leader that understands that, they know that their role, especially in a director's position, is to really just focus on their team, provide them their resources so they can be the best they can be, because that's what they're hired for.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's been times we've been in meetings with our advisory board, and they'll ask about, like we're having issues with our boxwood bushes up here and the moths that are eating all of them. And they look at me and ask the question, and I immediately look at our park superintendent, right? I'm like, listen, don't act like I can answer that question. I can point out a boxwood because my wife loves to plant them in the front yard. Outside of that, I'm not your person. Right. And that's okay, right? I mean, but now I think, Jay, to your point, like younger me never would have done that. I mean, part of that's getting comfortable in your own skin, right? And to recognize, like, I don't have to be great at everything. I really don't. And it's not realistic to think that I am great at everything.
Yeah.
I love that. And the fact that we don't own these positions, we rent them, like we're caretakers, and sure, there are legacy people. You replaced someone that had been there for a long time. Tom replaced someone that had been there a long time and had a huge impact. Unfortunately for those people, 5 or 10 years from now, you could talk to a resident and they may not even know those people existed or the impact they had. And that's what public service is in some ways. We don't own these positions. We rent them, we caretake them for this time that we get, and we're trying to make the impact we have. Going into Kettering and caretaking an agency that is so. First of all, can we just say 5 Rivers? It's kind of bragging, right? Like 5 Rivers. Is there anyone with 6 or 7? Like, we get it. It's a lot of rivers. Big deal, right?
Well,
like, we get it.
So technically, Shane, though, it's 3 rivers and 2 creeks, but that didn't sound good or really fit.
That's right.
Because
look at you exposing the truth.
It's the Twin Creek and the Wolf Creek and the Mad River, the Miami, and the Stillwater. So it's 3 rivers and 2 creeks. But
throwing a little shade on 5 Rivers. It's 3.5.
3 rivers in what? Out of Pittsburgh. So I'm not sure they could have used that. 5 Rivers sounds better, right? Feels robust.
This is the guy coming from the one who likes to brag that he is the trail capital of Texas. So let's not talk about the number of rivers here. Let's focus on what he wants to brag about his thing. So come on.
You claim what you can claim, and if there's no agency that tells you can't. Yep. Yeah, the famous story on that is when I got to Missouri City, I wanted to make an impact. So I said Missouri City had the largest fireworks show in Fort Bend County. Now, Sugar Land had a larger show and a longer show. It was factually inaccurate. But I told the Houston Chronicle that we had the largest show in Fort Bend County, and they wrote that in the paper. Drove Sugar Land crazy, drove the Sugar Land mayor crazy. Sugar Land mayor reached out to our mayor. Our mayor reached out to me. I told him I was just making shit up, just trying to get under their. And what I did the following year is I said, per Houston Chronicle, largest show in Fort Bend County, because they had written what I said inaccurately. So honestly, you just say whatever you can say. No one can prove it. So 5 Rivers, good on you.
Our police department has signs on the car doors that says Ohio's finest.
There you go.
I don't know. There was a vote. I think it's one of those like, we're the official sponsor of Holiday Lights, right?
You just claim it.
You can make that stuff up, right?
Make whatever. I mean, I did Trail Capital of Texas, so Alan wouldn't. And now every time Alan emails me, they say from the real Trail Capital, and they can say that all they want. Our governor signed it. I get to say it for the next 10 years. So it's just one of those things where you go out and claim something. But getting back to the actual question, the responsibility to caretake an industry-leading agency like that, even one that you had comfortable with and one that you had embedded in some ways and felt like you were a key cog in the community, has to still come, even this far in, has to come with some imposter syndrome potentially. And, what was it like? We talked about a little earlier the puzzle piece and you doing things a little bit differently. Was there any period where you thought maybe I should just do exactly what they've done? I should conform, or did you say no? This is my leadership style. They hired me because they wanted me, they trusted me, and I'm the person to lead it next. And some people are I can obviously take and embrace, you're not changing the board commission meeting. If it's the third Thursday of council, you're not moving it to Tuesdays or whatever, but you do make changes, right? What was your Mendoza line on how many changes you were going to make, how quickly you were going to make them, and feel out the impact to the staff?
Yeah, there's certainly, there's small things that you can change right away. And some of them were, I wanted to empower the staff more, right?
Sure.
Like that was an easy one. We have a superintendent over administration who knows more about the budget and the ins and the outs and the spending than I do. Why is that guy not signing some of these disbursements, right? And that sort of thing. Like, get me out of that, man. And so it was that kind of really good empowerment, I think, was one of the first things that I tried to really focus on.
Because that says you trust them.
Right.
Yeah.
Because I do trust them.
That's what they hear. They hear you're not being lazy. You're not passing the buck. You're saying, I actually trust you to decide where the boxwoods need to be. I trust you to approve this budget amendment or whatever.
And you are all highly paid, highly skilled, highly educated professionals. Y'all should be able to do this stuff, right? And so, really showing them that I trusted them and empowering them to do good work, I think that was one of the things that was first on the horizon, right? That was an easy kind of a change. And that's no shade against the former director. We just had different approaches. Some people want to make sure that they're aware of everything to not be caught off guard because their supervisor may ask them a question. I'm comfortable looking at somebody and saying, you know what, I'll check that out. I don't have an answer for you right now, but I'll check it out. And I'm comfortable there. There's been other things that an organization like a city government, you may or may not be surprised, things don't change rapidly in municipalities. There's a lot of things that when I have worked here from 10 years ago to now are identical. Some of those things are just entrenched and you're not going to change, processes outside of our department. But for us, it's been more about how do we empower staff and give them kind of what I call that flexible solution space to solve the issue at the lowest level. Not everything needs to come up to me or come up to a superintendent and then back down the other way. Y'all fix it with the customer.
It solves it faster too. Like I don't have to say, well, let me talk to Bill and I'll get back to you next Tuesday. This is what we're going to do. If it's wrong, Bill's going to coach me on it. We're going to move forward in a different direction. But I'm going to handle today's problem now, whether it's a nut that needs to be in a bolt that needs to be on a playground equipment or a reimbursement of someone's camp fee. I'm solving it now. If it's wrong, we're going to learn how to do it right in the future. But what we're not going to do is take 48 hours to figure this smaller problem out.
In addition to that, one of the things that I learned from Metro Parks and Becky Benet, who's another just titan, by the way, Jay came through Kettering also, this whole concept of like when you're out of the office, be out of the office, right? Name and acting, put somebody else in charge, let them feel what it's like to be the person in charge and make decisions. And Shane, to your point, if they make the wrong decision, that's okay. We'll coach them up. I wouldn't have made that call, but I wasn't here to make that call. You were. I put you in charge. You made the call, and then you move on from it. But, really working with the team to impress upon them that when you're off, friend, be off. Disconnect from here. You've got families, you've got friends, you've got things you want to go see and do. I don't want you tied to your cell phone. Name somebody to be in charge. And that, I would say that's one other thing that I have really tried to impress upon my team. And I feel like is actually working more citywide as well. We're seeing the other directors send notes out to say, I'm going to be out, so-and-so's in charge, which is terrific. I'm sorry, Jay, I cut you off.
No, you're fine. And then also what I was going to say is that's only going to help every other staff member grow, because that empowerment is going to allow them to grow in areas that they wouldn't have if they weren't able to make those decisions or don't feel the ability to make decisions. So all you're doing is building more future leaders. And who knows, like even if they do make a mistake, they're going to learn from that. And that mistake probably won't happen again. So by doing that, you're just actually making what you would want in an ideal employee, because you're empowering them, you're giving them the resources. And like you said, if something goes wrong, then you can coach them on the back end. So it's a win-win for everybody, because then you feel like you have the confidence in your staff. The staff will grow because they feel empowered and they have confidence. And then you can actually, whether you're taking your time off or whether you're just being able to focus on a different task, then you can do that.
The other thing that it teaches those employees who maybe aren't in those roles is they may learn, I don't want that role. Right. And that's really valuable, right? Because some people may think, man, I really want to be the manager, the superintendent, the director. And they start to see what that job really does. And they're like, nope, just kidding. I like working summer camps and seeing kids do things they've never done before. That's where I get my joy from. Because the further you get away as an administrator and a director level, you get further away from that. And so if that's what really charges your battery, then advancing in a administrative role may not be for you.
It's funny when you leave or someone leaves and they handled some duties and then you come back or they come back to see the reaction of staff. Sometimes they're like, oh, we handled fine without you. Sometimes they're like, holy shit, I am glad you're back. I did not realize that you got this many questions about this, and so all that is just exposure to what's next in their career and if that's really something they're interested in or not.
Yeah, absolutely.
Speaking of developing future leaders, let's talk a little bit about professional growth in the industry and maybe tie that a little bit into what we talked about earlier on the show, which is financial management, financial responsibility. I don't know a lot of individuals in our field that hold a certified government financial manager designation. It's definitely, I'm going to assume, unique to Bill. I'm sure there's others, but you don't hear about it a lot. And so just, out of curiosity, kind of a two-pronged question, because I can't ask just one. It's got to be two. How has the financial training that you have influenced what you're doing in the day-to-day? And then maybe to the point of what we talked about earlier, of some advice for individuals, what's maybe a message or something that you find resonates with our field right now that you can pass along to professionals that might have to do with that financial management responsibility?
Yeah, I would say that, the training that I've had has really been, out of necessity in a lot of ways, right? So when our previous director came in, she worked in a park district from the Chicagoland area, which was very revenue focused and bottom line driven and that sort of thing. And so at that point, Kettering didn't have a lot of focus on that. And so there was a lot of training from that respect. I showed a lot of aptitude and pursued advanced training from there, getting involved with the Revenue Development and Management School, getting a master's degree, and then, really pursuing that certified government financial manager. That's through the Association of Government Accountants, which is not really something that probably does a lot with Parks and Recreation in general. I would attend conferences for Government Finance Officers Association, so it's just a completely different world than what we're accustomed to. And that training really helps because the more you can understand and talk the language of some of those finance officers in your organization, if it's a separate, like a director from another department or the CFO of your organization, the more you understand maybe some of the why behind the procedures they have in place or the policies, the further it'll go. If there's one message I would say for folks out there in the industry, the finance people are really your friend, right? They're not there to make life difficult.
Yeah.
Most of the time,
just coming from a finance person, by the way.
Yeah, and most of the time, the policies and procedures they have in place are dictated by the state, by federal government. I mean, it's not because they want to make your life hard. I promise you. Now, are there some out there that want to make your life difficult? Probably. The vast majority, I promise you, are not like that. So I really think being able to talk the language with your finance team, understanding why things happen, critically important, right? I think the more you can get to know the folks, like we're fortunate enough in our organization, we're big enough that we have somebody that their sole responsibility is to produce a budget every year and then monitor that budget throughout the year. And that person is my best friend. We interface all the time.
Yeah.
We interfaced all the time when I was here before just to understand where we are and how we're tracking on different items. And so that is so important to really learn it. It's not enough for somebody who is, maybe got their undergraduate degree in Parks and Recreation or some related field to say, well, I went into that because I wanted to avoid math. I don't want to do anything with accounting. Like you can't do that. You can't afford to do that and be successful in our industry and just say, I'm not good at that. I can get by saying, look, I'm not a horticulturalist. I'm not an arborist. I'm not a programmer, but I cannot abdicate my responsibility for finances. And so if somebody is struggling in that area, man, be vulnerable, raise your hand, ask for help, and then challenge the people you work with because they'll start talking in alphabet soup, right? We got to make sure we get the PO in by EOD, and we got to do this and blah, blah, blah. Man, raise your hand and say, I don't know what you're talking about. I've taught classes before on a variety of financial related topics and challenge folks in that room to quit using the acronyms. Because I promise you, there's somebody in there who doesn't know what that means, and they might be too embarrassed to raise their hand and admit it. Yeah. So can we just not, right? Just use the whole word. And then what you find, sometimes the people using the acronym,
they don't know the real word.
Ding, 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 ding. They don't know what it means. And so
they just start using it.
Yeah.
Yep.
They know the concept, but they couldn't actually spell it out. So, I think for us as professionals, we've got to lean into those conversations, and we can't just say, I'm bad with numbers, right? Like that doesn't work.
No, that's really well said. I think I'll just put us out there, the juxtaposition between what Bill said and our MWR friends, the acronyms that are used in that world
it's crazy over there.
Is, and again, they're in their own world.
Sure.
I will say to your point there, that was so well said and articulated. The piece there are two pieces there that I want to kind of pick apart a little bit. One, when you talked about your friends, they're your friends and they're your best friends, those finance individuals. I think every relationship should work this way. And some of the great parts of this conversation are that we're tying a lot together of the themes of what Bill's been talking about today. Relationship building is huge. And if you work for those finance people, they will work for you. And I promise you that. They need help too. So if you do some of that work for them, they're going to pay it forward. That's all about relationships. And then the other piece you mentioned earlier about how Kettering is, and what I read from your kind of that narrative of how you get a lot of support. Kettering Recreation, Parks, and Cultural Services is positioned at the top. Kettering has learned how to position themselves at the top of the food chain when it comes to municipal work. We always talk about that. Who's fighting for the piece of the pie or who's getting the support? And if you can get yourself or your recreation department positioned up there, then you're doing something right. What you've done or what you have when you talk about the other certification, whether it's financial management or whatever, that's a whole nother way to position yourself up there too, because the trust that those individuals now have in you, because you went through the financial trainings, you went and put the time in to get the knowledge. That's a totally different way to position yourself. For anybody out there, if you're thinking about how you can establish yourself in your agency at top of the food chain, we talk about it all the time, but that continued learning, there's a lot more than we can do than just CPRP or whatever that may be that's attractive and can impact your organization beyond Parks and Recreation.
Did you do that because you were at Five Rivers, or did you do that because you were in Kettering, like pursuing the governmental cert that not a lot of people have?
Yeah, so I pursued that certification when I was at Five Rivers Metro Parks, serving as their CFO.
Yeah,
that was really where that came into play. It was just really important to me to have some credential because, I'm not a classically trained accountant, right? I didn't come up with a CPA or anything like that. And, I look at certifications or accreditation or anything like that. It's kind of that good housekeeping seal of approval that you're doing the right thing and you know your stuff. And so that was important to me. And it was super beneficial. And, keep in mind, everybody's talking to somebody else. So when I was at Metro Parks, we're talking to our county auditors who are collecting our property tax levies and that sort of thing. And so being able to talk the talk and understand millages and rollbacks and all these different property tax things is so helpful. And, if you don't know, friend, ask, right? These people would love to tell you about it, maybe longer than you want to listen. But I rarely have found people that when you ask them a question, are just unwilling to help or assist in that way. And I think it'll show a level of interest to do good work and to make sure that you're meeting the needs of those financial people.
It's probably an argument, guys, for we talk about going from a suburban or what we would deem a smaller agency to a really large agency in some ways, which is, and I don't want to assume, Bill, that you wouldn't have pursued this, but if you'd stayed in Kettering, potentially you maybe don't feel the need to get some certification that now is benefited you at Metro, but it's also now benefiting you in your agency here. And so, first of all, moving and taking a leap and trying something new and stepping outside your comfort zone and going to a big department, going to a big agency, I think we find a lot of reasons internally to say, no, I'm not going to do that. But it makes you better, right? It makes you have to work on the craft.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, Bill, we are at the point in the episode here where we're running shorter on time. So we're going to go into what we call rapid fire round. These are meant to be shorter questions. If they're not, no one cares. We just want to know a little bit more about you. And so let me start by flipping the script. Some knowledge. Bill, as I mentioned, has 2 sons. His oldest son is graduating from college. Congratulations on that. So this question is actually for Shane. It's another mascot question.
Okay.
Son is graduating from Wright State.
Whoa, I don't even know. I don't know anything about Wright State. Wright State. That's not it. First of all, that I've been watching the American Revolution. That's not a state. Right? There's not a state. Right.
All right.
Misnaming it.
It's a team that is named after a football team that has the black hole as a reference in their stadium.
Black hole. Bermuda Triangles? The triangles. The White State Triangles.
All right. Hopefully I'm right on that fact, but Pirates, also a theme there.
Wright State Pirates?
The Raiders. They're Raiders.
Holy crap. You've worked us hard to get to that.
Shane, they're in the Horizon League. They
gotcha.
If they win their conference, they'll be in the NCAA, but that's their only opportunity to really get in the big dance.
So we were getting real deep into the weeds there for Shane. All right, sorry.
What state is Wright State again?
It's in Ohio.
Okay.
So it's Wright State because of the Wright brothers. The first in flight. Sorry, Jay, that was actually us.
They were Kitty Hawk.
So, All right, let's move into our questions for Bill. You spend a lot of time camping, so I know Jay might have some follow-up questions because he's always visiting different parks, state parks, national parks. But my question to you is just unwinding. You had mentioned earlier about you leave work and you leave work and you enjoy it. So I'm sure you do that when you're camping. What is a camping trip look like for you, Bill? For you and the family? I'm not much of a camper, so give us a little glimpse of what that looks like.
Yeah. So, well, first of all, it's probably glamping, not camping. We have a travel trailer. It's 26
I like that.
So nobody's sleeping on the ground, and it is temperature controlled, right? So let's start there. Honestly, we look at camping a lot as challenge by choice, right? So if you want to go hiking, awesome. If you want to go fishing, awesome. If you want to hold the camp chairs down and make sure they don't fly away, great. It's just whatever you want to do, right? Whatever unwinding and relaxing looks like for you. But we have a great time with it. We eat like kings when we're out there. We're not cooking a bunch of hot dogs and baked beans. I've been known to make chicken fried rice while we're out there, smash burgers.
You got Blackstone that you bring with you?
Got a Blackstone we take with us. So we're making crunch wraps. We've had scallops and fillets. I mean, it's next level. I mean, you might want to come with us sometime.
This sounds like my kind of
camping. It's not all bad, right?
Well, where's the invite?
Sounds like the Disney of camping.
It is the Disney of camping. We love going up to Sleeping Bear Dunes up in northern Michigan, up around Traverse City. It's one of our favorite places. We've gone out west to Colorado. We've been to Mount Rushmore and some of those places, and just we love it. It's terrific.
Okay, so I'm going to follow up on that. Gas station or convenience store or road stop food. What is your go-to grabs when you're doing these travels?
Yeah, so actually the last time we went to Michigan, we actually just ate out of the camper. We had because you're dragging a big house with you, right? So we went back there and made some cold cut sandwiches and had some potato salad and went on it that way. But look, I've been known to stop at a Sheetz and fill up on some of their fast food over there. So I'm not particular, brother. I'll eat wherever I can find food.
Sounds good.
Have you ever been to a Buc-ee's?
I've been to one Buc-ee's, not pulling the camper. Boy, that's an experience.
It is.
Going to a Buc-ee's. I mean, I felt like we were wandering around. It was almost like like being in an IKEA, right? Like, how did I get here? How did I spend this much money? And we should leave.
It's my happy place. I love walking around.
It was so disorienting, but it was a good time. We liked it.
Yeah, it's his happy place, even though it's always titled as an introvert, and Buc-ee's is like a madhouse of people.
It is.
Yeah.
Again,
but
going back
it's like being in New York as an introvert. You can look at everyone and not talk to anyone. It's incredible.
I know, and that's what I agree with you. I don't go to Disney and start striking up conversations with everybody. I just love it.
Yes, you do.
So, you went to Disney and you said you hated it. I don't understand. But you love Buc-ee's.
I did hate it, and still hate it.
It's the same.
It's the photos that were being used against me.
Okay, Bill, where is the best place to go visit in Kettering if I want to go check out a park and go out to a good restaurant?
All right, so we'll start with the good restaurant. Is a place called Filio in Kettering.
Okay.
It is wood-fired pizzas, amazing pastas. They have a great Filio martini. It is the perfect place for a date night. My wife and I love it. We're there a lot. We love it there. I think if you're going to look for a park in Kettering to go to, we have a natural area park called Pondview Park. And it is the first universally accessible natural area park in the state of Ohio, where there are the pathways are all accessible to folks with mobility challenges. There are plantings and displays that are up raised beds so that folks can experience them. There's fishing piers that are there. The interpretive signage that we have has it's raised so you can feel what you're kind of looking at, as well as recorded audio messages that'll read the board to you. It is very accessible for people with varying kinds of abilities, and it's a really special place that everybody can experience nature.
Nice. And how far are you from Columbus, since we'll be there in a couple of years?
We are about an hour and 20 minutes from Columbus.
Okay.
So pretty close.
You're not going to fly.
I would not fly to. I have flown out of Columbus, but I will not fly to Columbus for NRPA. No, I will not.
Just checking.
And I'll be disappointed if you guys don't come down to see me now.
That wouldn't be a good use of financial dollars to fly.
I think that would be great to take RecLess down to Kettering. If we can go check out some facilities. Let's do it.
We could. I was actually I put Kettering in ChatGPT. It says it's Shawnee Indian for 6 rivers. Is that true?
I've never heard that.
6 rivers.
I just made that up. Sorry.
All right. On that note, we're going to let you loose, Bill. We really, really appreciate the time today. This conversation was amazing. So thank you so much for joining us and putting up with some of the shenanigans.
Thanks, Bill.
Thanks for having me. Sometimes you don't like to see the way the sausage is made, but if this is how y'all make the sausage on RecLess, I'm here for it. You guys are great. Keep doing what you're doing. Big fan, and can't wait to see what happens next.
Awesome. Thank you.
I love the analogy.
Yes, I do too. Yeah. Take care, Bill. Have a good one.
See ya.
I mean, we've actually seen Tom make sausage from scratch.
That's right. Sausage King, wasn't that his nickname?
Great analogy. No, that's Jay. Jay's the Sausage King. That was his college nickname.
That's right. We're learning too much about everybody here.
Yeah.
That was a great episode. He is
he's great.
He's incredible, isn't he? Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. Fascinating. Kettering,
Yeah.
like you said, I mean, we've talked about that before, but yeah, there is quite the lineage and reputation there. And, I really appreciated him. He was very honest and open, and of course, what you would expect. I've met him several times, not a whole lot before this podcast, so I really enjoyed the opportunity. But every time you get the same individual, someone who's extremely open, welcoming,
Yeah,
and great to
jovial.
be around. Yeah, absolutely. And I appreciated when he was bragging on Kettering too, and to be able to be humble and say what maybe you're not that great at, but also be able to brag on, and we don't brag on ourselves nearly enough. I appreciated that because they do great things, and we should all be able to say that and want to be able to publicize that as well. So yeah, good stuff.
He's
Yeah,
someone that it doesn't take very long for you to interact with, and we're like, yeah, that would be someone that would be incredible to work for. Yeah.
Yeah.
And has
Yeah.
been spoken on this show before we got to him. I think it was Ryan Davis's episode. They talked a little about him as well, right?
Yeah.
Didn't he have some? Yeah. So very cool.
All right,
And
guys.
he's teamed up with several other guests that we've had on this show when they speak at conferences. Because I think, Tom, correct me if I'm wrong, I know my first time really meeting him was in Maryland. And he was speaking with Bobby Nance.
Yes.
I thought there might have been a Bobby Nance connection too. Yeah.
We met him in Maryland, Jay and I, at the same time, I believe. And then I ran into and had another conversation when I was in New Jersey and he was in New Jersey. And then I believe it was the national conference. We had bumped into each other. And then also I had ran into Bobby Nance, and Bobby and I started talking. I was like, I got to get Bill on the podcast. And Bobby connected the two of us. So
nice. That's awesome.
Yeah. Great stuff.
Bobby's going to be in Wisconsin when we're there. So that'll be cool.
It's going to be a big party in Wisconsin.
We could probably just not speak and just go attend someone else's session. They don't even know if they'd notice.
Well, let's call it there. Jay has somewhere to be.
Jay's got to be.
On behalf of my Parks and Rec field friends, we will see you all next time on RecLess.
See ya.
See ya.
This episode of RecLess wouldn't have been possible without the support of our agencies and our better halves, Melissa Salatino, Lindsay Tryon, and our executive producer, Hannah Mize. We also want to thank our director of hashtags and swag, Rooney Taylor, and our team of junior producers, Luke, James, Elizabeth, Grant, and Harper. Stay up to date on all things RecLess by following all of our social media, and like and subscribe wherever you get your podcast to ensure you don't miss an episode. See you next time on RecLess.